Okay, I know the video title is a little bit spicy, but I do have a point to make that I think that you'll end up agreeing with, or at least you'll see my side. So just wait until you listen to comment. So, this video ties in with Kieślowski's second feature film, Camera Buff. In the film, the protagonist, Philip, discovers his passion for making films. But since he lives in USSR-era Poland, he also faces heavy censorship. Now, many filmmakers would portray the censor as evil, and Philip is like this righteous soldier against their oppression. But Kieślowski takes a lighter tone with it, going as far as to portray the censorship as comical. In one scene, the primary censor explains to Philip why he censors certain things, and so Philip and the audience get a better understanding of him and why all of this is happening. Even in the guest appearance by other prominent Polish director Krzysztof Zanussi, Zanussi casually states that he has people censoring his movies. For him, it's just a natural part of life. Now, this could all be chalked up to Kieślowski making films in the Soviet system. Obviously, the USSR would not allow Kieślowski to make concretely anti-Soviet films. His films still had to pass the censors. And as Kieślowski said, censors weren't just these bureaucratic pencil pushers who just gave a pass or deny to these films. Censors were involved in the writing of the film. They were there for the pre-production. They were there on set. They were in the post-production. They were in the distribution of the film. And they were people who went and saw the film in cinemas. But I was intrigued when I started watching and reading interviews with Kieślowski about the matter. After he started making films in the West, working with French and American companies after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Kieślowski defended censorship. Now, why should an artist defend censorship? Isn't censorship the mortal enemy of every artist? Well, not exactly, according to Kieślowski. You see, Kieślowski saw censorship as a balancing act, as learning to walk on a razor's edge. The censors would tell him what he could and could not have in his films. If he completely submitted to them, he'd become a propagandist, not an artist. But if he rebelled against them, his films wouldn't be made. So he'd find ways to not totally give in, but give in just enough in order to make his films. Indeed, this is a major storyline throughout the film Camera Buff, as Philip never really concedes. He never really gives in to the censor. He gives the censor what he wants, but he also fights for his own voice within the films that he makes. He learns how to have some things fly under the radar, but he also learns of the negative consequences from completely rebelling against the system. So Kieślowski is arguing a few things here. Censorship forces an artist to reconsider how to present their ideas, usually causing them to find a more subtle and nuanced approach to expressing themselves. He's also arguing that censorship is, in fact, self-defeating, as it makes whatever is being suppressed a forbidden fruit. I mean, it's pretty simple human psychology. If you tell someone that they can't do something or they can't say something, they're going to want to do or say it. I mean, barring anything moral, like don't kill or don't steal. Censorship, then, artificially creates a target for artists. I want to read a quote here from the film director Pier Paolo Pasolini. An artist, if he's unselfish and passionate, is always a living protest. Just to open his mouth is to protest. Against conformism, against what is official, public, or national, what everyone else is comfortable with. So the moment he opens his mouth, an artist is engaged, because opening his mouth is always scandalous. True artists want to illuminate the truth. Now, I don't believe all film is art, and all filmmakers are artists, but that's a discussion for another time. But I want to add that Kieślowski agrees with me on this statement, as in Camera Buff, there's a scene where the news director asks Philip if he fancies himself an artist. When Philip says no, the news director breathes a huge sigh of relief. Okay, getting back on track. If a certain government or organization censors something, that means they're afraid of whatever it is they're trying to suppress, which in turn implies that there may be some truth to it. Now, not all artists are going to want to push the boundaries with the censors, but it will definitely pique the interest of many, and the clever ones will find ways to present it in their works. We saw that in the Hays Code era Hollywood system, and we see that in the Soviet films. The Diamond Arm by Leonid Gady was one of the highest grossing Soviet films of all time, selling as many tickets in the Soviet Union as Titanic sold in the West. And guess what? It was littered with anti-Soviet messages. Like any system, the capable adapt. And in Kieślowski's view, the fact that he could adapt grew him as an artist. He wasn't working in a void. He worked in an incredibly strict system. And in that, he found a way to get his sometimes politically incorrect ideas through. So, I know that censorship is a sensitive topic now. I don't want this to be a political channel. I'm merely highlighting what a lot of people see as an unforgivable evil, and hopefully also showing how that evil does more harm to the establishment than they think. But to bring it back to Kieślowski, what was perhaps just as interesting as his take on censorship was his take on censorship in the West. He distinguished the Soviet and Western systems, with Soviet censorship as political and Western censorship as economic. Ideas and stories that are perceived as being unsellable or overly offensive to the establishment aren't made. Financiers won't back content that they feel could harm their brand. I'm sure this is all too familiar for YouTubers. But looking back on Hollywood, the MPAA is a form of censorship. There's a great documentary on it called This Film Is Not Yet Rated, which I advise you to watch if you're interested in that. In the States, we have the First Amendment. But what happens if your film gets an NC-17 rating and all of a sudden no theater chain wants to show your film? Of course, streaming services make it easier nowadays, but as we're seeing the internet become more corporatized, I wouldn't be surprised to see increasing content restrictions for filmmakers on streaming sites. So whether we like it or not, we have to adapt. We still need a voice, but we shouldn't give in completely to the censors. The trick is finding that middle ground, that razor's edge. In the States, we have the First Amendment. But what happens if your film gets an NC-17 rating and all of a sudden no theater chain wants to show your film? Of course, streaming services make it easier nowadays. But as we're seeing the internet become more corporatized, I wouldn't be surprised to see increasing content restrictions for filmmakers on streaming sites. So whether we like it or not, we'll have to adapt. We still need a voice, but we shouldn't give in completely to the censors. The trick is finding that middle ground, that razor's edge, so that once these ideas are no longer censored, as nothing lasts forever, we'll be better off for it. Good art can, and often does, flourish under restrictions, and often the best art arises out of the worst of times. So I guess what Kieślowski would say is don't wallow in sorrow that people are telling you what you can and cannot say. Embrace it. Find a way to say what you have to say anyway. It's only going to make you stronger. Of course, I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments. My channel is a free speech zone, so I'm not going to censor you, but hey, I can't control YouTube. Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Most of my videos won't be as controversial as this one, but discussion of art, in any case, must sometimes delve into controversy. I'll see you in my next video.